Today, we're talking with Kristie Sullivan from Executive Remote Worker. Her company provides business professionals with done-for-you workations so they don't have to sacrifice paychecks or use their PTO. This includes an upcoming trip to Bailey, Colorado. Welcome back, everybody. I guess we could start the show by saying that Sean is now in New York. He'll be going into Manhattan later today, so we'll get some updates on what the city's like. He'll do a little walking tour. Probably won't film the whole thing, but I'm sure he'll get some good photos. So it's behind him there somewhere. He's in Queens now, I believe, looking back on the city. It's all one big fucking blur, right? But yeah, it's there somewhere, we promise.
Yeah, so right at chin level here, Manhattan. Right around there is all Manhattan in the background. Yeah. So first time in New York State, New York City, and I'm excited.
No, that's good stuff. Yeah, people will be excited to see or hear about what it's like down there. So maybe our next show we'll get into New York, and I just left Detroit, so we'll do a little update on what downtown Detroit is like these days. I had a great time. We'll get into that. And today we'll be talking with Kristie Sullivan from Executive Remote Worker. She does workations and coordinated travel events for people that want to either work remotely full-time or they just want to give it a try and go somewhere new. So she's got places as far away as Croatia and other places overseas that she coordinates. And this is all done for you, all package deals. And she's also doing some things stateside. So she's got one coming up in Bailey, Colorado here, I believe in October. This episode will hopefully be out before then. We might have to make it a fucking point to put it out before then. Now for her to be able to promote that a little bit. So she's doing things that are overseas that require a little bit more work. But again, it's done for you. She handles all of it. And then she's doing some things that are stateside. So that'll be pretty exciting.
She's done a few previous ones already. She did one in the Yucatan area of Mexico, in Merida and Chilem. She's done one in Belize. She did another one in the Adriatic Sea. She's already done one in Croatia, Split, and there's another place I can't remember. There was a weird spelling one, but she's done quite a few of these already. So she has a lot of experience in the field, in the industry of doing it, and it's kind of like going to a co-working event or a co-working station, but on steroids. You get to travel, you get to explore, you get to immerse yourself in the local culture, you get to work, be productive, be creative at the same time. So it allows you to travel and work, see the culture, see the people, learn new languages, and just get like experience. It's a really good experience to do. And a lot of people, I used to be like, well, I need to be at work to make money or at a certain place to work at. So to be able to know that you can still be productive, still have a team behind you to be like, all right, guys, now it's work time. We can go play later. Because when I used to go on vacations, I didn't do any work. There was no work at all. So it's a good experience to have, I think. And what Kirstie's doing is definitely it's trending, it's catching, and I think a lot of people are going onto this route now. I know a lot of people that I worked when I was in Colombia. I met a girl there, and she gets 1 month every year to travel abroad and work. So companies are starting to do this more and more, but a lot of people, they have that option, but they just don't know where to go or what to do. So Kristie helps facilitate, get all the questions out of there, make it so it's safe, you know what you're doing, know where you're going, and it's a great thing that she's got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we mentioned, it's done for you. So, if you wanted to take a longer trip somewhere, either in the country or out, and depending upon where you're at, when I say in country, I'm talking about the States, but you can go somewhere and you can work, because a lot of people these days don't want to take that much time off. So this is a perfect blend of seeing the sites, getting the local culture, not having to worry about accommodations, travel, and visas, and all those other things that people are concerned about, safety and all those other things. So you get all that rolled into the package, but they also set aside time to work and network and meet other people and get things done. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. If she could figure out how to log into our recording platform here, we'll actually hear it from her. But I think that actually we should wrap it up. I think that's good. That's good for the show. I think we did a good job of promoting what she does. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week.
See you later. Yeah. No. I mean, well, on our next episode too, I can also talk about my experience in Montreal, because I was just there for a week as well. So I know that today's gonna be about the Kristie show or Kristie stuff we're doing, but definitely on our next episode, I'll talk about my experience in New York, what I liked about there, and then also what I found out about and what I enjoyed and didn't enjoy about Montreal as well, being back in Canada. One thing I will say is everyone's like, oh, is it nice being home? And I went from all Spanish countries to now the French part of Canada, so it's like still in a foreign country, because everyone's like, oh, comment ça va? Je voudrais. I'm like, God damn it, I want English.
Most people forget you guys have a lot of land, and it's not as densely populated, so there's probably a lot of places you could go where you just feel like you might as well be in another country because it's nowhere near the area that you grew up in. Well, speaking of that, where did you grow up, and where'd you spend most of your time, like until you left home? Because I don't know if we've talked about that yet.
Most of my life, I was born and raised in the Vancouver side of Canada, so British Columbia, West Coast area. So I grew up in a small town about when I was born there, it was about 80,000, 75,000 people in a town called Kamloops, British Columbia. And it's now, I think it's just over 100,000 now. So it's getting a lot bigger, mainly because the prices of Vancouver are so expensive. Everyone's moving into the interior, what we call the interior of British Columbia. So yeah, I grew up on that side. So, mostly all English in that side. If you go into Vancouver, you have a lot of East Indians, a lot of Oriental people down there. So you have Chinese, Mandarin, Punjab. There's a lot of different languages that you get immersed in there. But in the smaller towns like Kamloops, it's mostly just English. So I grew up with English. I went to school. We learned French, but because there wasn't French all around me, I was like, why do I need to learn French? Right. So we'll dive in a bit more into that a little later on. But yeah, we got Kristie made it. She's here.
You did a really good job.
I had to bail on the computer, and I went with my phone instead.
We actually did a really good job of plugging you before you got on here. We went through everything, so we're like, fuck, we're good. We can end the show now. Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, exactly. So we were just talking about Sean's background a little bit. But anyway, like we mentioned, we're here with Kristie Sullivan from Executive Remote Worker. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. We know you're up to a lot of exciting things. So I guess if you want to just do a quick intro and let people know who you are and what you do.
Yeah. No. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Oh, we're falling. We're down.
Is there an earthquake? There's an earthquake. There's an earthquake. I think she's.
Oh my gosh.
I think you're joining us from Florida.
Yes. So we made it back to Florida just not yesterday, the day before yesterday. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with my gimbal?
I love it though. Is it just going flaccid on you? Just going limp?
For all those who are just listening to the audio version, her camera cannot keep it up. She's having hard time keeping it up.
Sounds like a personal problem.
She's got a limp fucking limp gimbal. That'd be a good title for the show. You're coming to us from Florida now.
So I had spent about 20 years working in the corporate world in the US and just had these moments, all like micro moments that accumulated into like one big epiphany that I needed to do something different. Having a good job and accumulating stuff just wasn't enough, and travel was really important to me. I had said, I think my moment came when I was in a boardroom in a meeting, and before it started, everyone's chit-chatting around, and I said, the conversation started to like your life's goals, and almost everybody, it was like, their kids or it was their career. And I never had children of my own, and I was like dying inside a little bit. There was something different about what I was experiencing, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And so I blurted out that I wanted to live somewhere outside the US for at least a month. And I thought that was wild, because it was just like in the corporate world, like you take your 1 or 10-day vacation and that's like it. So the idea of like going somewhere else for a month meant I basically had to like get an expat assignment or quit my job or something like that. But anyways, I kind of like blacked out when I said it, is what it felt like. And then it was just like, holy shit, what did I just say? And then, but then I was just like, you know what? That was like my reality. That was like what I was really thinking. So I realized like, I don't care. Like, and then anyways, from that moment, I started to reposition my life to take a year off is what I thought, I never had kids. I never had maternity leave. Why don't I just take a year sabbatical to travel? And I had known a few people that had done that. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. And that was like total ballsy of them to do that. And so I thought, I don't want to be on my deathbed and wonder, what would it have been like to take a year off of my career? Like, who cares? It's just a year in the grand scheme of things. So then I repositioned my life to do that. And then my boyfriend and he already had a remote company. So then we just, the opportunity came up in 2020, oddly enough, and I took it and started flying to, in August of 2020, we were on a flight to Serbia. So that like kicked off so then that 1 year sabbatical to travel ended up lasting like over 3 years. And so now our stuff is still in storage. So we're kind of still full-time nomads or travelers, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But since the beginning of this year, what I started to do is also, instead of going back to the traditional corporate grind, if you will, I decided to take on like interim projects. So doing like, 3 to 6 month gigs here and there, because then that would still give me the flexibility to travel the other time. So it's like, instead of making my like bigger salary and, having the permanent full-time corporate job, instead I'm just taking little assignments, and my lifestyle has become so more affordable that I can do this lifestyle by only working like 3 or 6 months out of the year to kind of cover that. So, I mean, we travel very lean and such. So that's my backstory. And then in the course of traveling, I was like, holy shit, like all these other people could be doing this. Like the people that were me sitting in that office, staring out the window, that office with the window just wasn't like as cool as I had dreamed it when I graduated college. And so I thought more people could be doing this, especially since the pandemic proved that remote working works. Maybe not the way people have implemented it, but we'll get there is what I think. So that was the whole genesis of, as I was traveling, I was kind of trying to build the executive remote worker business. And then my boyfriend had his own real estate company. So we were really like working and traveling the whole time. So that's kind of how it all evolved.
Two things. What made you choose Serbia, for example, as the first destination? Because it's not,
That's
we're all
normal,
familiar
right?
with it. Yeah, but it's not something, it wouldn't be the first place that popped up. So how did you end up going to Europe and start there? And then, of course, I met you and Bill in Spain, but we can get to that down
Yeah.
the road. But why Serbia?
There was so much uncertainty in the market. I had asked my leadership at work to be permanently remote, and they came back and said, actually, we're going to eliminate your position. And so they gave me the severance package, or they created a new role that was like a lot less money, like the salary was a lot less. And so I was just like, wait a second, this is like, no, I'll take the severance, thank you. Because I'd already been saving up money. So like the money wasn't the issue. And then I got a severance on top of it. And so July 1st was my last day. And then, so it's the pandemic, right? Like a lot of people are still in masks and whatever, but we had talked about, I knew my job was ending in June. So I had like a couple of months, like a month or so to like prepare or whatever. So we were like watching, well, what countries are even open, like to travel to and so on. You know what it was? Bill had a screensaver that had this amazing water, and it was Croatia. And we're like, where the hell's Croatia? I don't even know. Like I've had friends honeymoon there, and I thought, and then I thought, if I'm being totally honest, I thought, what a big F you to my company that eliminated my position to say, oh, you laid me off. I'm going to go spend 3 months in Croatia. Like that was sort of I had a little chip on my shoulder still about that. And so we wanted to go to Croatia. It was open like in June. Like, you just needed to book accommodations. As you guys know, like there's like a million rules and every country was different. And I was like Johnny on the spot. We were watching it like every day. Like I knew almost every country. I could tell you what was open and what was required to enter and all that. But so in June, Croatia, you just had to book accommodations. We're like, no problem, right? But then by the time end of July came, they had implemented you needed a negative PCR test to enter, and it had to be within 48 hours. The US testing was like not super reliable from how soon you get your results and stuff. And then we had like visions of, well, what if the test doesn't come back by the time you land, and then you're going to get sent to some camp or whatever. Turned out Australia was that, but we didn't know what to expect, right? And so then we got looking, and it was like, well, you can enter Serbia with nothing. Like it was wide open, as a lot of the other Balkan countries were. And so we could fly direct. So we could fly within the US to like JFK, and then there was a direct flight to Belgrade from there. So that made the connections. We didn't have to stop in the EU, they didn't like us, they didn't want us there. So that direct flight made it like easy. And then we thought, well, let's just stay there for a week, settle in, get the lay of the land, get tested there, figure out how we can get tested there because it borders Croatia. So it was basically our like entry point into Croatia. So we spent a week there, and then we have like I wrote a blog post about getting tested in Belgrade at the time. It was a pretty hilarious experience. So that's why Serbia. And COVID brought us to a part of the world that we may not otherwise have really picked, right? So
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of touching on the COVID thing. That's kind of what got me in traveling as well. Is being isolated and stuck in a place where I didn't really want to be anymore, and these different rules that were coming in, the nonsense that wasn't making any sense. And if it wasn't for that initiative, sometimes that's what I like what you said there. Sometimes you need that kick in the ass, that little push forward. That you need to be, your job no longer was existing, and COVID had to come into place for you to go to Serbia. So there's certain things when like the universe sends you signs, you got to take it. And I think what happens is a lot of people ignore these signs, and there's so many signs. Like, there's people out there right now that can do what you do, work part-time or travel and do workations and travel around, and these signs are being pushed in their face and they just don't accept it. They're too afraid to be like, well, that's not me, I can't do that, this is not what this isn't, my life can't be that good. And it can be. And I think that's what I like about what you do with executive remote workers. You lay it out step by step of how you can do this. So it eliminates all the questions, it eliminates all the guesswork. They're not wondering, is this going to be safe? Is this a good place to go? Where am I staying? What are we going to do for activities? Where's the good Wi-Fi? With working with you, you give them itinerary, like the recaps of all the places you've gone. You tell them how good the Wi-Fi speed is, where the restaurants are. You show them what the bathroom looks like in the accommodations. Like, you take guesswork out of it, which is amazing. I love that. So,
exactly.
tell us a bit more about some of the maybe give us the best example of like what holds people back the most from doing this. Do you think what's one of the reasons why people don't do these workations more often?
Yeah, I think the beauty of the workation, for example, is you really don't have to like give up your whole life to do this. Like, I maybe be on the extreme side of it, but you could still have your career, in my opinion. You could still have like a very successful career and travel just part of the time, right? Like, take a month. Is that really that? Like, if you're in a hybrid work environment and you're going into the office 2 times a week. Well, maybe for 4 weeks you don't come in the office at all because you're working from Mexico or whatever, right? But I think so, and I have spent time talking to a lot of different people about like what holds them back, or what do they perceive as the risks. And well, first of all, I think it's a lot of people are very, very, very risk averse, and especially the number one thing after interviewing like 30 different people around the world, what I concluded, the number one thing that people said is, am I freezing?
I'm pretending to freeze also. Sean, Kristie, can you hear us? I think you froze up on us there. I don't know if it's a flattering photo though. The good thing is that because it records locally, so even if she was still talking, like, that doesn't get lost. That still gets uploaded. So that's why when that happens, whenever that happens, I just try to sit still and like just wait, because it'll eventually come back on. And just for anybody who's watching or listening to this, if we don't cut this part out, she was not abducted. She's in Florida, although it's possible.
She is safe.
Florida is could arguably be more dangerous than some of the places that she's been.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that Google search before, where it's you type in? I've heard this search was again, but
the date in Florida, man.
The date of your birthday. There's always something fucked up that happened on your birthday in Florida. Like, every day of the year for every year, there's something fucking wild.
Yeah. There's some fucking character. Here we go.
I don't know why I have Wi-Fi. It should work.
I'll be back.
Almost.
There's an appearance.
I love that state, but goddamn, man, it's such a mess, and it's wide ranging too, because you got all the like cool, super modern, expensive shit all the way down by the Miami Fort Lauderdale area. You've got the Palm Beaches, West Palm and all that up there, and then Naples, Sarasota, and all the other places on the other coast. And we've got the quote unquote tropical islands of the Keys, kind of like the closest we have to tropical in Florida and the U.S. And then northern Florida can get pretty redneck because there's like rolling hills and stuff like that. It's a little bit cheaper, but you can go down there and in one day you can see like a Lamborghini, then you see like an old jacked up pickup truck. I mean, there's just
with a Confederate flag.
Yeah, it's quite the cross section of America, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. Because there's some fucking yeah. It's either a great experience or you're getting the worst of everything. I haven't
Well, I
decided
mean,
yet.
I'm in New York, and I've seen a lot of weirdos here already. I've seen
Yeah,
two guys with like full facial hair, beard, in high heels and dresses. I'm like,
I love
what
that.
the fuck's going
Totally.
on?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna cross dress it, at least like shave and like try to take it there. Don't half-ass it and like have a
Yeah,
beard
he had
and
like a
put a
five
dress on.
o'clock. He had like a 5 o'clock shadow and hairy legs and a dress. I'm like, what are you doing?
Guys.
Right. Oh no. But we
Yeah.
were just kind of like addressing some of the objections and things like that, and
Yeah.
like some of the pain points.
Okay, so
It
over the
works.
last couple of years, I had interviewed probably like 30 different nomads, and their number one thing that they were most concerned about when it came to traveling while working remotely was losing their job. Like that's like when it all boils down to it, they're afraid, like, you have like a lifestyle to pay for, so losing your job, especially in the US, is very traumatic. And so if you're not like already prepared for it like I was, that trauma lasted like 3 hours, maybe tops. And then I was like, okay, this is like perfect. So that's the thing. They're like nervous to lose their job, right? So it's very risky for someone in the US in their mind to go outside the US because they're so far away. They have no idea what to expect. They don't know, right? And so that is where I think the executive remote worker comes into play, because it's like, look, I've been there. I know exactly where to go, what's it like. I think the language barrier is, there's all these little obstacles that people have in their mind that are probably not as big as they think, but it's still there. And, worrying about the Wi-Fi. So that's a big one. How am I going to work? The other one that I've heard that's pretty common is, well, I can't work in this beautiful location. Like I couldn't stay focused because they have this like vacation mindset. Plan your time, know what you got to do. Hopefully you like your job enough that you know what, like you're excited to do what you do. So it's not as, I can either go swim in the sea or I can work, I guess
Yeah.
we just view it as do your work and then go play. And it facilitates more work-life balance.
Because people don't get out that often, that when it's time for them to go on their 10-day vacation, they're just in vacation mode. So they've never done a long period of time of working and doing that. So like their mindset is just, well, if I'm not in the country and I'm in Mexico, it's drinking time, it's party time. But I mean, once you get in the mindset and you have to know, okay, like this is not a typical vacation, this is a workcation. We're working while vacating at the same time. Like right now, I'm in New York City. I'm in Queens right now. Manhattan's behind me. I'm working in the morning, and then once I'm done my work, recording the podcast, I'm going to go have fun in the city, right? And then tomorrow, same thing. Work in the morning, go have fun in the city. So it can be done.
And there's a lot of hours in the day too. So unless you're like me, where I used to drink in the mornings, there's lots of fucking time. So you get up at like, it's only 10 in the morning right now. I've been awake for like 6 hours. So even when you go on these vacations, but I know I hear what you're saying. People are like, oh, I got to work with the ocean in the background. I'm like, well, just work until 11 a.m. Then you feel better about yourself. Like, oh, I got something done today and I'm on vacation. It's like the best of both worlds. So you did all this traveling. You kind of identified I'm assuming what a lot of what led into ERW was you learned the things that you guys had to go up against. You're like, okay, well now I'm going to make this easier for everybody else. And I do understand the whole American thing where we're kind of, I don't want to say sheltered, but we see things on the news and we just assume the rest of the world is shit. Ooh, I'm not so sure I want to go to these places. So what are some of the places that you've done workations in? And then we'll get into some of the upcoming things that we also want to talk about.
I think we kind of have a tendency to go to the places that not everybody goes, the typical places, like the typical, so that first year, Serbia, a lot of time in Croatia, Istanbul, and then we bounced back to the US to visit family and friends, and then we went to Mexico for the winter. Playa del Carmen obviously is like the nomad capital of the world. So remote working is easy. The beaches are really nice. It's an easy destination to like get tapped into. So, and then we went to, we keep going to, so we've spent a lot of time in Croatia because they were not part of the Schengen. So it was easy for us for the visa situation to like go to places like in Hungary, like Budapest and Warsaw and Tenerife, that are part of the Schengen. So Americans get 90 days on a rolling 180 inside those Schengen countries. And then we would bounce out. Croatia was our bounce pad because that was before it was Schengen. Beginning of last year, it's now part of Schengen. So we lost our primary bounce pad. But we spent a month in Skopje, North Macedonia. We've spent time in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Last summer, we spent 3 months, a little over 3 months in Albania. That was kind of interesting, super interesting. I think what's really interesting about these places is the actual history is so different from what I envisioned or was taught in school or led to believe in the propaganda and the media and stuff like that, right? Like actually meeting and knowing people from Serbia and Croatia and being in high school in the 90s, it's like what I was envisioning it like was totally different, and what the people were like is completely different. So that's really the big nugget that I like about traveling in those areas, at least, because that's the history we don't learn. Like we didn't really learn about the history in the Balkan countries, really. It's like you learned about France and Germany and England and like the luxury brand countries. I like those kind of I don't want to say second tier because to me they're like way better.
We're about the same age. We were in high school at the same time. So when we were in high school, or like those earlier in the 90s and everything else, most of these places you heard of, there was just civil war everywhere, like Bosnia and Herzegovina. Like they had the Serbian, they had a conflict over there. So when I think of all these places, I think of like the buildings must be all blown out. And like that's what I have in my mind because that's what was on the fucking news when we were kids. So I can imagine like it was a total shock going over there and seeing like everything completely different from what you were used to.
Yeah.
Same thing with me in Mexico City. Like all the images and pictures and videos I ever saw in Mexico City was, like the suburbs and the barrio, and it's all these like little shacks, and there is that there, but like I just, they show like, the most overpopulated cities. So when I first flew there, I was like, oh God, like, what am I doing here? I go there and there's like these massive glass skyscrapers and monuments and parks and castles. I was like, the fuck is this? It's beautiful, right? It's like you said, the media, the propaganda, the brainwashing, they do that because they don't want you to go there because A, you're not spending your money in their country, you're not paying tax in their country, or whatever it might be. And if you go there, like, life's better over here.
The first time we went to Croatia, which of course we heard like Croats and Bosniaks, and I heard these terms in high school, and it was just like the image that's conjured up. And anyways, the first time we went to Croatia, Bill and I we're having dinner in this little village, and we couldn't help but notice it was like 9-10 o'clock at night. It's dark. All these little kids were like playing in the street, and all the adults were sitting in this restaurant eating and having a beer or whatever, right? It's like, this place is so safe. Like Croatia is one of the most safe places like in the world from what I've experienced.
Croatia and Dubrovnik, I believe they filmed some of Game of Thrones there, so it's popular and famous for that now too. And I know I'm sure some of that gets overrun during season because everybody wants to see the castles and all that shit and everything else. But
and the cruise ships.
Well, those don't help any when they empty out. We're going to link your site and everything and all the services that ERW has. But like, let's say I came to you today and I'm like, hey, I want to take a trip with you, and we'll use one of the upcoming ones. For example, you do have a Croatia trip coming up, I think, in a couple weeks, very soon. And then there's one in Colorado. And before you came on, Sean and I were talking about that you do overseas trips, but you're also going to start doing some more stateside trips. There's also one that you're organizing for us in Florida here, I think 3 weeks out from now. I will be down there for that, heavily drinking. So hopefully I don't ruin the reputation of anything. But let's say I came to you. I want to go on this trip to Bailey, Colorado, for example. Like, what are some of the things I can expect like that you provide that I don't have to worry about?
We'll take it all. Like, just get there. If you can get to Denver Airport, we'll take care of the rest. Bailey's it's between Breckenridge and Denver. So we can pick you up from the airport. You'll have private accommodations. So how I normally do these group trips is I will schedule, like we'll have a conversation about what you're looking for to make sure that it's like a good fit and it's what you're looking for. And then proceed like the deposit and reserve your spot and so on. Then I structure it so that I have 2 30-minute calls with you just to talk about any questions you have in preparation for it. And then right before we'll have our second call typically, but you can do it however you want. That first call is usually about more macro level logistics, like how are you going to get there and that kind of thing. as you get closer to the actual date, that conversation is a little more micro level where, oh, well, what do I pack, or, that kind of thing. Then in Bailey, there's like private cabins. It's on this guy. So I met this guy. He reached out to me because he like loves what I'm doing. And so he reached out and said, I take care of this millions of acres of land in the Rocky Mountains, and I have these private cabins. I have Starlink. My wife and I work here. I think it'd be really cool if your community is interested in coming here for a workation. And so that's kind of how it all started. And he's like, we have these 6 cabins. I think they're in the Rocky Mountain National Forest, but there's trails and you're right there and everything. So every cabin was just remodeled. It has a kitchenette. It has, the usual beds and bathrooms and stuff like that. And then on site is a lodge, a big lodge with a commercial kitchen and, tons of different like sitting area options and a balcony, a deck off the back that faces the mountains with tables. It's amazing. And so what we have planned, so you come, we'll get you there. We have groceries, like we can do grocery delivery. We can bring you into town to get groceries if you want. And then you'll have your own cabin. There's plenty of places to work. They have Starlink, so the Wi-Fi is solid. And then every night we're going to have like a happy hour bonfire, campfire thing. So everyone that's been working can meet up and have cocktails or whatever they want to do. Or maybe they want to go for a hike, like the sky's the limit. I mean, there's like infinite number of options for this.
Basically, you handle everything as long as we can get to Denver. And I imagine this would go for any trip stateside because there's obviously not visas involved for U.S. citizens. And then you've got the grocery runs. And of course, people can choose their own adventure too. So if somebody wants to rent a car and fucking drive around, they can do that. That's totally on them. But let's say I just wanted to show up with just my computer and my backpack. As long as I can get to Denver, everything is basically can be done for me. I don't have to worry about all this shit and making trips into town and everything else. And except for maybe the bears and Sasquatch and all that other shit, there's really nothing else to worry about.
The idea is to make it as easy as possible. And then, I've done a lot of like international workations, Mexico and Europe and so on. But it's like the US is even easier, and we're doing it in a short period of time. So this would be like a great opportunity for someone that's like workation curious and they don't want to totally commit to like crossing the pond or going to another country. Instead, you're like, right, you could drive home. I mean, realistically, if it totally sucked ass and you couldn't work or whatever, it's like, or a flight for $50 or whatever back home, or what, it's really risk-free in my opinion. And then also everything is like ready and to go, so you can try it. It's only going to be, we're going to do this one only for 10 days too. So we're going to start it on a Thursday and we're going to end it on a Saturday. So you really could travel there Thursday evening. So you could almost work the whole day if you wanted Thursday, travel there, like if you flew or something, fly there on Thursday night. You could take PTO or work Friday, and then you got the weekend to explore without, any work responsibilities, hopefully. And then the next week you're all set to work. And then you leave on the next Saturday. So it makes it really easy.
And that's the best part too, is a lot of people, they want, especially because they might already be stressed as it is about trying to do the remote working and being away from the office. I think by you alleviating almost all the problems, all the worries, transportation, like obviously they have to get transportation to there, but once they're in the Denver area, or they're in, let's say if you have one in Croatia, once they're there, you handle basically the accommodations, make sure the Wi-Fi is solid. So it alleviates a lot of the stress. Because I know, like, when I was traveling, for example, it was a bit different. I was in a motorhome, but I had Starlink internet. But a lot of times I didn't know, like, is there going to be cell service? Is there too much tree coverage for my Starlink to work? Is this a good spot to be? Is this safe? Is this dangerous? So there's a lot of these things that I was figuring on my own. And, like, for me, like, I'm a pretty adventurous person, so it wasn't that scary, but I can see for someone who's like never done anything like this before, they'd be like worrying about these sort of things. So the fact that you alleviate all these problems is a big relief for a lot of people, and people that are watching this, it just takes that weight off your shoulders. You just got to go there. The only step you have to take is really just reaching out, going to one of these workations if it's for you, which I'm pretty sure it will be. Unless you're like a shy, introverted, work in the basement person and you just like hate people, then don't go. But if you're a normal, outgoing kind of individual, go explore.
There's nothing wrong with working in the basement, okay? There's nothing wrong with fucking working in the basement. You know what else has crossed my mind? That nobody's supposed to see behind the shower curtain here. You know what else has crossed my mind too is I wouldn't be half surprised if some employers would be like, "Hey, you won't have to use all your leave for this because if you can go and work and now there's a big emphasis on mental health. I want to go on this thing so I can go relax a little bit, but I'm going to work while I'm there. So will this count against my leave bank? Or maybe some employers would even start sponsoring something like this, or at least paying for some of it, saying you get a little bit of vacation, you get to go work while you're there, so we're not losing a lot of productivity. And it's kind of the best of both worlds. And that's probably something that people should look into. It's something we should look into as well, actually, as a matter of fact, because if you
For
can
sure.
get somebody on a trip, some mental health benefits, see somewhere new, I mean, you really can't go wrong there. And you're there with other people that are working. So again, like we were saying with the traveling, you're not going to be like sitting at a resort in Mexico where the douchebag next door is just, me. If I'm next door just drinking margaritas all morning and you can't get anything done, like you're going to be in places where other people are like, hey, we'll go meet after lunch. I got to go do this thing real quick. And fucking who knows? I mean, shit, Sean and I met at a co-working cafe in Playa, so, and now look at all the shit we've got going on. So you could meet some people there. I can't think of any downsides, especially taking away the stress and the travel of everything. So we've got Bailey coming up here, and then Florida, which is closed because that's just our group. I mean, if anybody wants to show up to that, you can
Hang
meet
out
us
with cool
there.
people.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot going on. You'll see us filming stuff around the pool at the Hilton there. And aside from that, like any I know it's hard to project because you want to tackle these one at a time. Do you have any plans for this winter for either your own travel or any other workations on the horizon, or maybe if they're not planned yet, or anything just on the whiteboard that you're thinking about doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. This Bailey, Colorado is the first US one. And so I'm actually curious if this will go gangbusters. I have a feeling that it will for US workers because it's like, for all the reasons that we've talked about, it's so much easier. I'm kind of curious what comes out of that. And I'm kind of holding tight to see where to go next from there. I know winters, obviously Mexico is nice. This wouldn't be like a beginner's trip, but I am kind of curious to check out more of the Southern Hemisphere in the winter too, because that's their summer, so we can chase the sun a little bit. Maybe Buenos Aires is always on my list, but I'm also contemplating a trip to Paraguay in South America. This is a conversation for another day, but getting residency there is very easy. So having my plan B residency there, kind of some friends of mine and I are.
Yeah. And residency in Mexico is pretty easy too. I'm technically a Mexicano Blanco now. I'm a white Mexican.
Like that scene in from Dusk Till Dawn, or no, Desperado, the biggest Mexican. Sean towers over everybody else in Playa del Carmen. South America, I mean, and for people who don't know this, Kristie and I are both from Minnesota, Sean's from Canada, so we're no strangers to winter, but we fucking hate it, and we try to avoid it every chance we get. Well, that's exciting, and I think that the more people hear about this, and the more we can get it out there, and with visibility and everything, and just people learning a few things. And again, for the Colorado one, and then the Florida one coming up, we will have footage of that. We'll be there. We'll be talking to people. You'll be able to hear it right from the people that are there, and that'll be exciting too. So
I got to throw a shout out to the City View rooftop where I'm at. I got to do a shout out to these guys. That's where I'm recording right now. They let me use the rooftop patio. They gave me their personal Wi-Fi to record a podcast in private and quiet. So I had to do a shout out to the City rooftop here in Queens.
Oh, that's cool. I like
you
that.
guys. Thank you.
It's a little early for a drink, but hey, I mean, depending upon who you are. So
this show is sponsored by.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Kind of is. We haven't signed Nissan yet, so yeah. I don't know. Do we miss anything important? Is there anything else you want to put out there? Again, we'll link everything, and everybody will know where to find you and everything like that.
Hopefully, I didn't blabber too much, and you can make use of.
Well, yeah, don't worry. You're good.
Yeah. No, I think this is really good.
Yeah,
I do think, as an aside though, that the whole idea of getting a corporate kind of angle to all of this has always been in the back of my mind, but I didn't know how to crack that nut because, and it came up in 2021. We took a sailing trip in Croatia in the Adriatic Sea, and it was a 55-foot sailing yacht, and there was 6 of us from our executive remote worker community, and then 2 crew. And you could see how great of an opportunity that was for a team. Bill said that because he's a former software engineer. And so he said, this would be a great trip for a team, like a development team, to come and all work together, and then, you know, have a meeting and a real creative session and like solution something, and then
Yeah.
go hop in the water and, you know,
Mm.
cool off and
Oh, yeah.
play, and then come back, have a bite to eat, go back to work, and, you know, work on whatever you're doing. So you could come away from that week trip with a project done to completion. Or
Yeah, for sure.
so that was the first thing that came to when he said that. It was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then the other thing would be it was kind of tangential to like sales teams. And there's a lot of like reward trips that the salespeople earn in general. And it's like, you know, instead of sending someone on like a 3-day cruise where they're not going to get, or a week-long trip cruise or whatever, when they're not going to get any work done. So it was sort of like, why don't they just offer a remote working trip? Because then they get, the cost is the same, but they get the benefit of people still working, so they don't totally like lose productivity during that time. Kind of seemed like a thing. And then it got me, then my brain was like, every company needs to have a workation policy, I think. It should be like you have your vacation policy and then you have your workcation policy. And I think a lot of companies are starting to do that, where they're maybe for like a month every year you can work from anywhere and so on, right? And I think that's great. And so I love the idea of, if there was companies or teams of people that wanted help and wanted to like, where should I go? What are some good options from your experience and so on? Like, I think that's the kind of service too that we could offer at the Executive Remote Worker.
Yeah, for sure.
no,
It's
I
like
like
instead
that.
of sending people on a fucking retreat where they have to do trust falls and stuff, like let's go sailing. Let's go up in the mountains, so we all have to like gang up and fight against a mountain lion or something. That's real team fucking building right there.
Trust
That's real
falls.
team building. Yeah. We had to fight off a grizzly together. Now we're a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that shit. So, yeah, guys, it's
I
fucking
love
been
it.
great though. Sean, anything else top of mind there?
We're gonna put all of your links on there as well for people to reach out to you,
Awesome.
and hopefully we'll release this episode before. I know we're probably gonna miss the Croatia deadline, but for Bailey, Colorado, and the next ones you have coming up, we'll definitely have this out for those to start getting some traction, show some people the interest of what's going on out there, get your name out there more. And it's been a really great face-to-face again. I know we worked together in the past with building your site and doing your marketing and that kind of stuff, but actually having a chance for you to really get your message out there has been is good. And for people to be able to listen to this and watch this and put a face to the name and see who's behind the scenes and what's going on, it's been a great experience. So it's been really fun having you on here.
And shout out to you guys. I should have probably said that, like all the marketing stuff that you've helped me with. Like I'm a bean counter. Let's be honest. Like I'm in the accounting and finance world. And so having you guys, the expertise to like help has been like invaluable. So super appreciative.
Well, that's a great place to stop. I feel great about myself now. So we will catch up with you after the Florida trip. I'm going to go live from there, and then we'll catch up after the Colorado. So to be continued, my friends, and let me stop this before I say something that will get canceled for.